Okay guys, so I did a recent video where I literally went through what I do to plan for the academic year, so September. So I'm going to go into my new school now and I'm going to pretty much just see what can be done in the summer to help me come the academic year. So in my bag I have a folder of all the emails that have been going back and forth, and then I also have the laptop that they gave me, and I pretty much have water, my charger, and yeah, there's not really much in there honestly. So let's go. People living, people dying, children had they hear them crying. So I have just arrived. I'm outside the school right now, and you know my lipstick is just non-existent, so I'm gonna put that back on. I don't know, but I feel like when you have a short style, and by the way I recently did a big chop, it's not used to having this short hair, and I feel like you have to accessorize if you have short hair. So when I get some like big glasses, definitely couldn't find my gold hoops, but it's okay, it's okay. I'm here at the school and I'm about to go in. I arranged to meet up with the head of department at 9 o'clock and it's 9:15, so yeah, don't do that. Look better. Oh, that's better. I'm gonna go inside now. It's a beautiful day. It's beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. Why am I talking like that? So I'm in reception, but I can't see anybody. Okay, I've just seen the caretaker, who's like, "Who are you?" So he's gonna go and try and find someone that can give him permission to let me in. So yeah, this is fun, guys. Hello, you okay?
Maria.
Thank you. You okay? Hello. Oh, you're all in. They were making the best homemade cinnamon rolls ever. They're topped with cream cheese frosting and they're so easy to make. So I've decided to use some dough that I already had refrigerated from the night before. I use the same dough for the pizza and for my dinner rolls, so it's so versatile and it just cuts time in half. Alright guys, see you in September! Hey guys, so that is pretty much it. This is pretty much my prep day. So I went in and I met a few more members of staff. So again, lots of eyes on me. It's really hard to record, guys. I just want to put that out there. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Aldi for a quick nappy run, and I'm just looking at the queue thinking, why do I do this to myself? Okay, so we're home. I've got my shopping. I'm gonna go inside and I will join you guys real soon. I finally got time to sit down and pretty much go through what I did today. So the first thing that I did was meet a few more members of my staff. So we had arranged ahead of time, the sun is coming out and coming into my eye. We had arranged ahead of time, my department, to all come in on this day. It's now the summer holidays, so it's not uncommon for staff to come in, but we arranged as a department to come together. I'd only met the head of department before, so I met the other members now, so there was that. I also met the head teacher, so that's interesting. I love to see a really active head teacher coming around departments and getting to know their staff. So I thought that was amazing. That is a good sign moving forward, guys. It is a good sign. Like, what is the sun doing? The sun just be in my eyes. Like, should I move? Should I move here? Okay, so this is going to be a sketchy edit, but it's okay. We're going to go with it. Okay. So one thing we did as a department to plan for the next academic year is to order all the things that we need, and we have even more this year because of COVID. Now our timetable this year has been changed. I say changed, this is a brand new post for me, but theirs has been changed. It's just to make sure that bubbles aren't mixing. There's a lot of planning, I'm sure somebody has done a lot of planning to make sure that that happens. So another thing that we discussed is assessment and the unit of work. What exactly do the students need to learn, and in what time frame, and how are we going to deliver that as a department? And so we have basically designated responsibility of different tasks to each teacher to be getting on with, and we just share resources. I've always done that anyway, so that's not new for me, but it definitely is something that you want to do, otherwise you will literally just burn out. There's so much to wrap your head around, there's so much marking to do, there's just a lot. The last thing you want to do is spend all your time on making new resources if somebody already has it. So yeah, we pretty much know what we're doing there. So over the summer I am going to do some lesson planning to see exactly how progress is going to be made and how I can best deliver that to students. And again, we're going to get to that later on in this video, so make sure you do watch to the end. Okay, so the last thing that we did is got our teacher planners. Now I'm personally not going to use the one that the school provides you with. I might use it for other things, but I have my favourite, and I will link that in the description below. So the last thing that I have is the assessment calendar. This is what it looks like. It's lots of pages long, which basically tells you exactly when data drops are, which is, how can I explain data drops? It's when you assess students in regular intervals, and you can show progress over time based on those assessments. I'm going to flip my screen so you can see what I'm doing. Okay guys, so I've decided to do this electronically because you can see the entire page as I work through it. I will say that the inspiration for this 5-minute lesson plan has come from the teacher toolkit. I've put my own slant on it and how I like to work, but by all means you can use mine, which you can get from me via Instagram. Just private message me and I'll send that to you, or you can use the one on the teacher toolkit, whichever suits you best. So I'm going to work through each section, and this is just a general overview of what I do on a regular basis. In my first year, I did a much more in-depth lesson plan because I was being observed. So if you are doing that, then do watch out for my video on lesson planning, where I go in depth into an actual lesson and give some extra tips in lesson planning as well. But for this lesson plan, this is what I do on a regular basis, and yeah, it just gives me an overview of whether I'm meeting the standards. So the very first part of your 5-minute lesson plan is the big picture. And the reason it's called 5-minute lesson plan, guys, is because it should only take you 5 minutes to do. You've got so much to be doing, you don't want to be spending hours and hours on creating the perfect lesson plan. As long as it meets this criteria, you should be good. So first thing is the big picture, and this should not take you more than 30 seconds. What you're ultimately doing here is deciding how this lesson fits into your scheme of work and what knowledge you want those pupils to have coming out of that lesson, right? So general, what do you want them to know by the end of your lesson? This ties in nicely to the learning objectives. And don't be mistaken, you don't have to come up with the objectives alone. Students are really, really good at coming up with what the objectives should be because they know what the exam board requires of them. So I would come up with 2 or 3 learning objectives that you want those students to learn by the end of your lesson. I use Bloom's taxonomy just to make sure that I'm using key verbs and really important language, and to be able to get literacy in there as well. So I would recommend looking over the Bloom's taxonomy, which is a really good pyramid to make sure that learning is progressive. Okay, so this star is all about engagement. Ultimately, what is the hook? What is going to grab that student's attention? Now in the UK, we're really big on starters and plenaries. And a starter is basically what activity are you going to have for that student as soon as they walk into your classroom to get them straight on task. Obviously, it's going to be around your topic. And of course, it'd be even better if it is exciting and meaningful. But I can understand not all of us are super creative. I'm definitely not most of the time. So as long as you've got something to engage them straight away, you'll be fine here. Okay, so this one is super important, stickability. And it's ultimately, well, what do you want to stick in the pupil's mind when they leave your lesson, right? So what are the key points that you want them to take away and then bring again to that next lesson? What is going to stick? So next we've got AFL, and that stands for Assessment for Learning. So how will you ultimately assess where your learners are and what progress they're going to be making during your lesson? What strategies will you use to make that assessment? And how are the students going to recognize that for themselves as well? It could be through questioning, it could be through monitoring or teacher assessment, self-assessment, peer assessment. One thing that I really like to use is the PPPB, and that stands for pose, pause, pounce, and bounce. So you pose a question, you pause, give them a little bit of time to think about it, you pounce on a student, so you ask that student a question, and then that student then bounces it to another student, and we can start to develop a good discussion. It's such a good strategy, and most students are actually used to this as well in their other lessons. So it's really important for consistency as well. Now with all subjects, we have keywords that students might need to learn for that particular topic or that particular GCSE. So keywords would go in here that you want them to learn. This ultimately promotes really high levels of literacy, and you could even put a little bit of numeracy in there as well. It's really big in schools to get numeracy and literacy across the board, across subjects. So that's where you would try and think about how could I include that in this lesson. So over here with the link, you've got the curriculum. So how does this lesson tie in with the curriculum? Again, share this with your students so that they can make those links in their own private study time. Now, most teachers, depending on what subject you teach, will have to differentiate. Actually, all teachers have to differentiate no matter what your level of students are. So when I say differentiate, I mean you'll have students that are gifted and talented. They're really quick to get the information and they need to be challenged. You'll get students that might have SEN needs, so they need a little bit of more support depending on that need. You might have students with EAL, so English is an additional language. How are you going to tweak your lesson to meet the needs of that child? And then of course you'll have lower ability students and middle ability students as well. So how are you going to differentiate your lesson to meet the needs of all the children that are in that lesson? You might do this through grouping. You might do this through a set seating plan where the higher ability students can support the weaker students, or different tasks that you set. So a little bit of thinking depending on your lesson of how you will best differentiate for your group. And then down here you're deciding whether the topics that you are, sorry, that one's really annoying me. Then down here you're deciding what the topics are that you're going to be teaching throughout your lesson from start to finish. Is it going to be teacher-led, right? Are you going to be leading that activity, or is it going to be student-led? I would recommend that the majority of your lesson is student-led. Definitely identify opportunities for pupil-led learning. I find that when they're interactive and they're actually putting their learning into practice, again following the Bloom's taxonomy pyramid, then that's when they actually learn. And finally, we've got home learning, and you could even put another section in here if you wanted to say next steps if you've picked up something from that lesson. So home learning, again, you could give them more work to embed on what they've completed in lesson and then bring that back and feed it back as your starter in your next lesson with them. So again, don't labour too much on this. It's supposed to take 5 minutes. If it takes you a little bit more, that's fine. The more you practice with it, the easier it will get, especially as you know your curriculum and you know exactly what you need to deliver in your scheme of work. Again, if you'd like access to this lesson plan, you can private message me in Instagram. I will leave my Instagram down below, and I will send this through to you free of charge, or of course you can use the teacher toolkit version as well. Okay guys, so that's pretty much my lesson planning for now, and that's exactly what I'm going to do for each and every lesson plan that I do. Obviously tweaking as I get to know my classes even more when we return back to school in September. So if you've stuck with me to the end, thank you. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss any new content. With that said, have a good day guys.